Welcome back to the Sportsman Insider. This week, we are keeping the build of the all-new Open 402 rolling. Prototyping a new boat like this, especially one this big, takes a lot of care. Our job is to take what we've designed on the computer and actually make it real. And that means slowing down, working through all the little details, and fixing things as they pop up. At the same time, we're pulling together the playbook for the production team so that the full build process runs smoothly. Like we have always said around here, it might have worked on the screen, but does it work in real life? At this stage of the build, we've taken the boat from just a hull that we saw in episode 1 to a fully rigged and capped boat ready for final assembly. Before we can build a part, we have to build a mold. This happens in our mill room using the 5-axis router that you may remember from our Behind the Glass series. The process starts by cutting what's called a plug, and then building the inverse of that part, which becomes the mold, and finally pulling the mold off of the plug. Once that is done, we can then use that mold to build an actual part. Once the mold is finalized, it is framed with a steel structure for support. This is also how it will be moved around our plant. When that structure is complete, the team begins working the edge of the mold free from the plug using wedges and air. Once it's free, it's time to use a crane to fully remove the mold from the plug. A part of this size is far too large and heavy to use any of our cranes, so we have to call in some reinforcements. A large crane truck is driven in, anchored to the ground, and then used to raise these large parts. This is the safest and most efficient way that we can handle this process. Once the part is in the air, it is lowered and straps are attached as it is flipped upright on the frame structure. The mold can now be easily wheeled back into the plant where it will finally enter the build process. The mold goes through the same lamination process as every other part. First comes the gel coat, then the skin coat, and finally the dry loading for infusion. Once the part is bagged and ready, just as we saw in the previous episode, vacuum lines are attached, resin is let in, and the deck will be fully infused. This yields a lightweight and strong part for a superior strength to weight ratio. Before we get too far into the capping process, let's take a look at what's going on in our aluminum shop. As we have all seen, it is a very intricate process to build a boat. Many different parts have to be made and come together to get the final product. The center of a center console is indeed the console and its frame structure. In order to build the D-tubing structure properly, we start by building a jig. This is the structure that will be used to build the D-tubing frame for every single 402 from this point on. The first part of a jig is building the fiberglass parts. You'll notice that there's a full console, leaning post, and hardtop built. From here, the fixture that holds all these pieces together will be designed and fastened to the fiberglass pieces. Once complete, we can begin building and welding the actual D-tubing frame that will be on the Open 402, supporting the hardtop on the console and leaning post. This is one of the secrets to repeatability and accuracy of parts, time and time again, which is essential to building high volume with superior quality. From this point on, every single D-tubing frame structure for an Open 402 will be identical with the aid of this jig. Now it's time for the moment that we've all been waiting for. This is when the boat really comes to life, the capping process. Once the hull and deck are fully rigged, meaning all the parts such as harnesses, tanks, through hulls, and more are installed, and it's time to start the dry capping process. Dry capping is the act of capping the boat without any permanent bonding agents. This allows the team to check the fitment of the deck and hull. The goal is to easily sit the cap down like a perfect lid with a tight fit all the way around, like a Tupperware container. It easily comes off and on, but it's fully sealed when closed. Any areas where fitment is too tight gets worked down to achieve a perfect fit. Once dry capping is complete, it's time to utilize the two pieces. This means that once it's capped and it cures, the two parts can't be separated ever again. The team will quickly get to work laying methacrylate along the stringer and bulkheads where the deck will meet. They are extra cautious of areas along boxes and near wiring to avoid any overflow which may be visible. Once fully covered in methacrylate, the deck will be lowered down onto the hull, and with a final fitment check, they start cleaning any excess methacrylate and securing the two parts with fasteners along the pinning flange. This area will be covered later by the rub rail. We hope you've enjoyed following this build of the Open 402 and seeing how a new model comes to life. From here, things move quickly. In our next episode, we'll cover the final stages right before the boat hits the road for the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show, which opens October 29th. We hope to see you there. If you've missed any of the episodes for this series, now it's a perfect time to catch up. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.